Episode 17 of the Bmoney Beastin podcast. Man, I'm here with Jasitin, Justin, as we talked off camera. Kubwimana.
Yes,
He's a
sir.
sophomore at Campbellsville University up in Kentucky. Dude, I just told you this a few minutes off camera, but we're going to hit it right off the rip because I thought it was so cool. To get ready for this podcast, I was like, okay, I got to look up this guy. Like, he's got a pretty cool following on Instagram, but he looks like he's a pretty good wrestler. So let me look him up. So I looked up your profile on Campbellsville Wrestling, and I started looking. And you had like your freshman photo and your sophomore photo. And dude, you went from Slim Shady to Clark Kent, like literally in a year. You had like the blonde,
Yeah,
and dude, like, and then your sophomore photo, you look like you're getting ready to turn into Superman. So it was like a complete transformation.
yeah, it's a different look now. I really don't got my blonde right now. Cut it off. I just want a new look. Maybe I might go back. I've been thinking about it. Like I want to go for a fall break. I might dye it back, but I've been thinking about it.
I just found that really cool, man. Like it's like one extreme to the other. It was almost like Slim Shady to Marshall Mathers, you know? And I was like,
this is a comedy.
dude, it was so funny. Dude, I looked you up, and you're from the state of Kentucky, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's awesome, man. Let's get at that, right? And we'll get to what you accomplished last year and what your goals are. So you're from the state of Kentucky. What age did you start wrestling? Because I know Kentucky is not a contemporary wrestling state, right?
Yeah.
Similar to Georgia, everything else. So how did you get involved in the sport of wrestling, and like what through high school, and then we'll kind of move on to your college career?
How I got involved with wrestling, I was like, I think it was. I heard first. I didn't even know like they actually did this type of wrestling. Like I thought wrestling was like WWE and all that.
Yeah.
I remember my brother joined the wrestling team when he was like I think sophomore in high school. I was like, what? The wrestling team? They got a wrestling team in high school? And this was like I was in 8th grade I was in 8th grade at the time. So I was going to high school next year. I was like, oh wow. And everybody was like making fun of him in the family. He's doing wrestling, that weird stuff. I was like, yeah, whatever. So I go to going into my high school year. I go in. I have friends, but like I had friends, but I didn't have that much friends, and I felt like left out and all that. I was like, let me try to join like a team or something, like wrestling. I was like, all right, join the team. Came in. I came in my first day. I remember my first day. I was like, all right, I'm ready for this. I did football, all these sports. I came in there. I was like, they had us doing stance in motion. I was like, golly, what is this? What is this? They're teaching us. And they had us doing like so much push-ups. That practice, like probably like the hardest practice I ever remember. I came in. Coach Green, he was my coach at the time. He said, how you liking it so far? I was like, pretty good. It's pretty good. I didn't show up the next day. I did not show up the next day. I didn't show up the next day, and I was like, but my mom I'll remember there's something my mom always told me. It's like, don't ever be a quitter. I was like, all right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show up. I'm just gonna show up for the rest of the year, give it a try. If I don't like it, I'm just gonna quit at the end of the year. As it went on, I started liking it, and I started getting like more competitive because I was like, oh shoot, this is getting fun, getting more competitive. I started loving the sport just from there.
So you started in the 8th grade.
I started freshman year of high school.
Freshman year of high school.
Yes,
it's funny what you said though about your first practice, because everything you said translated back to Bryson. He started wrestling, I guess 5 or 6, whatever it was, at this local club. And dude, I remember he thought, I was like, hey man, you don't play basketball, and you play football and you play baseball. You want to wrestle? And he's like, little kids are like, yeah, sure, yeah, let's do whatever. And the whole week he's like, what should my name be? And you're talking about like a 5, 6-year-old kid. I don't know what he's talking about. He was convinced he was going to have like a mask and a cool entrance to the theme and like all this stuff, right? And then you go to practice and they run like 5 miles and do a bunch of up downs. And he's like, and I remember we got on the ride home. He's like, dude, I don't know. This is for me. But it kind of worked out the same way, right? You kind of stick with it. And then eventually you start like kind of getting competitive and being like, dude, this is fun.
Yeah.
So like that 100% correlates. I think that's a common story for a lot of guys. So you started in your 9th grade year. How did you fare in 4 years of high school?
How did I fare?
Like, what did you accomplish? What did you not accomplish? Like, how did you improve over those 4 years?
How did I improve? I had this teammate. He was like a state champ, and he really wanted to be like a 2-timer. So I was like, all right. So and everybody else that was like pretty good, like graduated. So I was like, all right, what can I do to help him get that state title? He said his second state title. So every day I was just come in there, 100%, everything I got. Even though he'll like destroy me whoop me every day, all that. He will whoop me every day. But I was like, all right, I gotta get this guy better and all that. But what I was not realizing that trying to get him better was also making me better.
100%.
I remember it was coming to my junior year of high school. I was like unranked, nothing. Nobody knew of me or anything. I come in the state tournament. I was like, yeah, this so and so is gonna get first, second, third, or whatever. Came in there, placed third. Everybody was like, what the heck? Who is this guy? I have never seen this guy before. Right, and then I remember I placed third my junior year, and then coming to my sophomore year, I was ranked number 1. Came in state tournament. I had a terrible weight cut, but I didn't let that hold me back. Placed third. Beat the guy that I lost to for that eliminated me from the state tournament.
So your junior and senior year, you placed third in Kentucky State.
Yes, sir.
Dude, that's so commendable. Like, to start so late, because I had a discussion with if you don't follow him, Khalil Shakur. He's on Instagram.
Yeah,
great guy. And he started as a sophomore, and in Georgia won a state championship, which is unheard of, right?
That's crazy.
Unheard of. And for you to start as a freshman and place top 3 twice, that's commendable, dude. Like, when you got kids that are starting wrestling at 5, 6, 7 years old, you look at how that compounds over time. And I was even bringing up where you were talking about, I got to make this guy better, and he's beating the piss out of me, dude. And I was thinking the whole time you were saying that, I was like, dude, he's just making you better, right? And it showed, right? So like you started late, but you had a pretty solid and improving. You improved over time through high school. How did you end up at Campbellsville? Which actually, funny story, real quick. I actually visited Campbellsville as a football recruit back in 2006.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I kind of have a good knowledge base of those NAIA programs. I went to all of them. Shorter had just started a football program back then. Now they just opened up. Now they're Division II, I think, in wrestling. I think they're going to be D2.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, D2. So like I had kind of had like a knowledge base of the football programs in NAIA and that in this South region. How did the recruiting process for you work? How did that kind of happen, and how did you end up there?
So I'll end up here. I feel like these people reach out to me first, so I was like, all right, I'll keep them in mind. I remember it was it was my sophomore year. It was before anybody know about me. Sophomore year, I remember I came in there because I always go to FCA camp. They always host FCA camps in the summer at Campbellsville. Yeah, I came in. Coach McIntosh, we call him Coach Mac. He was on the sideline just watching us do live goals because we do little duels, and then I just hit I forgot what move. He was like, "Oh my goodness, where'd you learn that from?" That was some good technique. I was like, "Oh no, I just did off the flights." Like, are you for real? He said, "What grade you in?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a sophomore." I said, He said, I can't recruit you right now, but I'm gonna give you my information." And then when it's time, I'm gonna text you and all that. I was like, okay. So I already had them in mind, and I already like the campus. I like the atmosphere around here, the Christian vibes and the religious vibes over here. And then my junior year, the head coach right now, Coach Merton, Jacob Merton, he'll hit me up all the time talking about he'll show up to my tournaments and oh, you're doing really good. Talk to me. And he's the one that really got me here. He helped me through a lot of stuff. And my coach also wrestled here a couple years back in 2015. So I was like, he was also pushing me. He was like, yeah, they're pretty good program. They'll get you really good, all that. They're like always top 5 in the country, always with good guys. So I was like, okay. I just felt like, yeah, when they first reached out to me, really impacted me. So I was like, okay, do these guys really care about me because they checked up on me and they really looked at me when I was nothing.
And in life, man, when you have somebody in your corner, like that's pushing or caring about you, that. Yeah, I don't know if you follow them or know this guy, Charlie Morris. He runs Morris Fitness Wrestling down in Georgia. He's maybe the greatest human being I've ever met. And during an interview I had a couple days ago, we were talking about him, and he said this to this guy, and he said, "Man, he goes, there's people in this sport that will love you and care for you whether you win or you lose, that are there for you." And dude, in life, that's a really rare thing.
Yeah.
Especially in the sports realm, right? That, it's what have you done for me lately? That's kind of like even at like a youth level, which I think is insane, but it's what have you done for me lately? But when you have people, and that's awesome that you realize that at such a young age, man, like these people, they want me here. They want me to succeed. And dude, it seems like you've made an awesome, choice here.
Yeah, for sure.
When you got there, and now this is another side of this that I'm kind of curious about, because you're the first college wrestler I have interviewed other college wrestlers, but I haven't talked to them about this aspect of it. How did you handle the financial aid situation? Was that a long process? And what was the adjustment? You're from the same state, right? Like, how far away did you move from home to Campbellsville? Was it a long, long way across the state? Was it close, proximity? Like, how was that transitional period for you?
Yeah, it was like an hour 30. I live in Lexington, which is like an hour 30, which is not that far. And through the financial aid, yeah, Coach Mack helped me through all that because I was really confused about it because I'm like none of my parents went to college, so I was like really confused about it. So he really helped me through that process, really. And the financial aid office here helped me too.
Do you know what are you going to major in? Do you know yet?
I major in film right now. That's my major. And I'm trying to get. I got a minor. I'm trying to get a minor in business administration. This is a backup, just in case everything that I want doesn't really go through. I have a backup as a business administration.
Dude, that's cool. Film. So you wanna like make movies, short films,
Production movie, yes, sir. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing, man. Like, actually, first thing this morning, I was thinking I had this idea for a guy. I was like, this guy needs a documentary or a movie. It's funny you said that. And we just mentioned him a minute ago. Khalil. I said there's not many guys that start as a sophomore, win a state championship, then he drops out of college, and then 10 years later, he's back wrestling his final year of eligibility in his 30s.
That's crazy.
It reminds me of like the Kurt Warner story, right? And it's like he was bagging groceries and then he won the Super Bowl. So it's like, dude, that kind of creative, like I love, art and film and music and like that creative aspect. That's really cool because you're already showing through Instagram at a young age. Because what are you, about 21-ish?
19.
Oh, dude, you're a baby, bro. So like you're very young, but you can kind of see it through like your Instagram following and how you promote things and how you can kind of see where you got like this creative touch to things. And it's funny you said film because, dude, I think that fits your personality, based on what I've seen, over time. So you get to Campbellsville last year, right? Last year,
yeah.
And as a freshman, you actually wrestled as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I seen on your bio you went 10-1 and you won the Georgia Open.
LifeU Open, yeah.
LifeU Open. Which, dude, that's pretty amazing, bro. I was actually learned more about, we're in the state of Georgia. I learned more about the LifeU program, and dude, they got like 100 guys on that roster.
They're like a wrestling factory. Like they got a lot of people on their team.
And the thing that's crazy is that the state of our state, and like I said, Kentucky's not a traditional wrestling state. Georgia really hasn't been. Tennessee, the Southeast is not really known for the sport of wrestling. But in the past like 5 to 7, 10 years, there's been drips and drabs of different states. Like, Alabama's coming up, Georgia's coming up, Florida's got some killers down there. So like the Southeast is getting better over time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you got like there's two, I think there's three, maybe 2, 3, or 4, I don't know, NAIA programs in Georgia, right? You got Reinhardt down in Waleska, and you got Life there in Atlanta. And if you look at like the kids that like even Skylar, who's up there with you, which we'll talk about him here in a minute. You got kids that can get in-state tuition because NAIA programs are expensive, right? For the most.
Yeah, because most of them are private schools.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at like the tuition cost. If you can get the in-state price on kids and you can keep kids in the state, that's typically a great way to build your program.
Mm-hmm.
But when you got so many kids, like in Georgia, for instance, dude, like if you go, like, I don't know, and I'll ask you this here in a minute. In the state of Georgia, there's 7. There was 7 classifications. I think it's 6 now. But if you look at, even like the third place guy, right? Like he's not bad, right? He's not bad. So there's a lot of depth here that's getting better over time. And, not everybody's going to be the Division I guy going to Penn State, right? Like it's just not feasible. But if you can keep, say the runner-up, third place guy, you keep them in state, that builds depth in that roster. And I'm sure, from what I understand, Life U, man, they got guys that they did that with, and then they're bringing in guys that are all Americans from other teams, and they're all for like one spot, right? So it's like really competitive. So that's really impressive, man. You did that as a freshman. And you finished 10-1 on the season. Did you get injured? Did something like that happen?
Yeah, I remember. I got injured, but the last tournament of my fourth weigh-in. This guy, I go into mat return him. I think he like hooked my leg, and I landed on it weird, my ankle, and I just sprained it. And I had to wrestle through the match. My coach made me He's like, "Hey, this is your last term. You might as well just wrestle through." I was like, "All right." I just wrestled through and I won the match, but I didn't go to the next match because I was just injured.
What was the recovery time on something like that?
It was a while because I also had to warm up my partner for nationals. So I was also warming up with him in nationals. So it took me at least like about 3 months to recover from it. Really,
because you were still putting stress on it throughout the time of trying to recover. Yeah. And I think that's a wrestling thing, man, because kids get hurt and like, they still like, well, I can't sit still, right? Like I have to do something. And, like we've been through injuries and stuff. And it's like, well, I can't sit here for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever. I got to do something. And I think that's just what makes wrestlers like amazing people, right? Like they have that go get it kind of like whatever the circumstances, I'm going to work around it kind of thing. Dude, back to the classification thing. I'm kind of interested because I don't know much about Kentucky, right? Like how many classifications are in the state of Kentucky?
We only got one. It's one state tournament. We got the process is okay. You go in. This is how it used to be when I wrestled, but they changed it up a little bit now. It's you go in regionals, and then the top 4 regionals move on to semi-state, and then I think the top 8 at semi-state moves on to state. But now I think they got it as regionals, top 3 in regionals, and then everybody is a 32-man bracket at state.
A 32-man bracket at state. That's awesome, dude, because like down here, and I've complained about it forever. Little kids, you'll see AAU tournaments, right? Mm-hmm. There'll be like 8-man brackets, right? And you'll see like some little 6-year-old wrestling like 3 or 4 of them on a Saturday, And down here, man, there's 6 classifications. So, dude, you got it goes area, sectionals, state, right? And down here in high school, so like top 4 from each, area, sectionals, state. By the time you get to the state tournament, it's like an 8-man bracket, right?
8-man bracket.
But it's like watered down, like 8, 12 man, something like that. And when you get to that point, now of course you're wrestling all these kids, right? Like throughout, but there's, again, there's 7 classifications. If there was one, there'd probably be a 32-man state bracket, right? but we don't have that. So you have six 8-man brackets per weight class, right? And they dragged that out for 3 days.
How do you do that 8-man bracket for 3 days?
They drag it out for like day one, and I've complained about it because that's what I brought up. 6-year-olds wrestling like 4 of those on a random Saturday, right? Like, and the bad part is you got to weigh in every day, right?
Every day.
So, like, for instance, if you're, and we'll just use like 106, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say at 106, by the time the state tournament gets there, it's 109, right? Because you got your 2 pounds and then your 1 pound at like February 1st or whatever. So it's 109. Well, the first weigh-in is 109. Then it's 110, or maybe it's 110. But it's like something like that. And then each day you get a pound, right? Well, when you got kids that, kids grow, right? Like,
yeah,
they're growing. And when you get to a point where to me, I feel like it's a money grab. Like, I really do. Because you can wrestle an 8-man bracket like in probably 4 hours, right? Like, or less, right? Like,
probably way less, yeah.
And all that's doing is, okay, we're going to wrestle. Because what will happen is they'll wrestle like a match. And then the next day they'll wrestle like a match or 2 matches. And then the next day they'll wrestle like the placement matches. So it's a really drawn out process, I feel like. But it's really cool to see that in the state of Kentucky, there's one classification. And you're starting to go ahead.
I was gonna say they try to get us like we have we do it in 2 days and they get the quarters. They get the quarters done the first day in like constellation, like the first 2 rounds constellation, and then they do the blow around the next day, and then the finals the next day too. That's how we do it. They're
knocking out now. Granted, they have 14 weights, so 14 brackets.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, like Georgia could do that. They could condense that, like, I don't know if they ever will. There's a lot of complaints down here about GHSA, but I'll just leave that alone right now. But dude, like that's really interesting. And I've started to see in the past year or two, maybe, that there's a lot of clubs popping up in the state of Kentucky, which is only a good thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Like when because especially in remote areas, right? Like, for instance, last year we did some gear packages for a little team up in West Virginia called Richwood Reapers. And dude, their logo was sick, bro. It was like fire, and it had like the death with the sickle,
Yeah.
And like, this is pretty neat, And turned out, which I kind of thought so, but my dad is from that town, right? My dad, I knew he was from West Virginia, but I wasn't sure exactly like the location. And he's from that town. There's like 600 people in that town. And it's about 5 miles wide, like in a square, right? So very, very remote. Last year, they had 46 kids wrestling. It was the biggest sport in the county.
Wow.
Like, they only had 19 kids on the varsity football team at the high school. 19. But they had 46 kids from kindergarten through 9th grade on a wrestling mat. So I was like, dude, that's awesome, So, like, in the state of Kentucky, man, there's a lot of remote area. I've been through there several times in my life, and it's a beautiful state. So there's a lot of remote areas in the state of Kentucky. And if there are people that are willing to start popping up these clubs, it's going to improve wrestling in the state of Kentucky. And I can only compare it to what's down here. Over time down here in Georgia, like Arturo ran the wrestling center from like 94 to maybe last year down in Marietta. And just about every kid that you've seen that like Peter Yates won the ACC and was an All-American. Like, that's just one name. He has a club now down in Georgia. He wrestled at Arturo's. Like, Matt Pitts runs Grindhouse. I'm actually repping him right now down in Dalton. And dude, he wrestled down at Arturo's when he was a kid, right? Like, growing up, and like he was the staple. And then all of a sudden, all these like guys that wrestled for him start popping up these clubs. Like, even, we train at Minion up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Sean Russell and his brother used to go down there years ago. Mm-hmm. So, like, he was like Arturo was like the godfather. And then all his, like, disciples, I guess you could say, started branching out and building out these clubs. And it's shown in the Southeast, like, it's helping raise the Southeast. And I think that's good for everybody. If there's people that are willing to reinvest in the sport, that's just a great thing. So, our guy, man. Skylar Grant.
Yeah, interesting guy. I love him. He's funny guy. Oh my goodness, God.
Dude. He, I think I told you a little bit off camera. Bryson has been, years ago, we were told by a guy in Chattanooga that Bryson was like this is probably the wrong way to say it, but this is what he said to me. He said, Bryson's the slut of this area's wrestling. And I said, dude, what? I was kind of confused by it. He's like, dude, he's been in every room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get your pun here. That was kind of funny. But so he's kind of been everywhere, like in our area, like wherever there was a partner, we'd kind of jump there and then jump here or whatever. And along the way, he met Skylar, which we're from the same town, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ringgold's kind of spread out, but the city limits are kind of small, but there's a lot of areas that are like, outskirt areas. He just happened to go to the one of the other county high schools. But dude, they met up several times, over the years at different practices and stuff, and just kind of, I got a picture somewhere, man. I'll send it to you where Bryson's on his shoulders after or whatever after a camp, and like Skylar's a big dude, right?
Huge.
And Bryson's like 5'3" and weighs 115 pounds or something, right? So like it looks like a Chihuahua sitting on a pit bull or something. But like, dude, he seemed like when Bryson told me that he was going to college to wrestle, I was like, dude, that's awesome, because that Heritage team last year had a handful of kids. Like Evan Wingrove's up at Ohio University right now, and he was probably more than likely, I would say, him and Skylar were practice partners. I dare say in high school, because they're close to the same size, big guys. So that was pretty cool. I haven't checked in with him, but how's he handling college life? How's he doing at practice? Like, give us an update on Skylar.
Skylar, he loves wrestling. He's been handling it pretty good. He's been in the wrestling room grinding. When I grab him, oh my god, his hand fight is really good. I remember I grabbed him for the first time. He's like, all right. He's like, oh, I see you on TikTok and all that. I want to see what you're all about. So, all right, bet. Okay. I roasted him wrestling. Hits this nasty like slide, but I don't know how he hit it. I was like, oh my goodness, that was good. But I didn't let him score though. I didn't let him score. I like Grammy didn't let him score. I was like, oh my goodness, you got to teach me that slide by right now, because that was so slick. Like he's just a good slick wrestler when it comes to hand fighting.
Dude, that's like a staple here, I think, because like there's probably 15, 20 variations of a slide by, right, that you could do. And dude, like every coach kind of teaches it a little different, but depending on, like in our area, if you go to a camp or a clinic or, somebody's teaching that, right? Like it's kind of a staple here, I think. So whichever variation he uses, I'm not sure, but I can tell I know he picked it up from one of like 3 coaches in our area. Dude, so I'm glad that he's doing good, Ringgold, Georgia, Pride up there in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Dude, this is what we'll kind of wrap this up on. And what got you into the social media kind of like promoting, marketing type thing? Was it your love for film?
Yeah, I remember it was like way before like I started wrestling. I started recording videos since like I'm trying to think, like I think I started recording videos probably like around elementary, like little clips of videos recording. But I didn't start editing until like middle school. I'll say like 7th grade of middle school. Start editing. I just had like a different page. I had like a different page where I just edit little clips and just post it. Edit little clips and post it. But then like one day but the page got viral for the wrong reason. I was like, I edited something like the king is back, and everybody in the comments just started roasting me on every post. So I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I deleted the page, everything, deleted it. I deleted it. I was still recording and everything. But then not until like my high school, I was like, all right, whatever. I started wrestling. I always recorded my matches and everything. I'll post like little clips on like my stories on my Instagram. And then one day my friend's like, hey, we should start like recording and like uploading videos on YouTube. I'm like, what type of videos? They're like, any video. So I started off with YouTube. I was like I was interviewing people at school, and I went very viral. Like at school, everybody's like, oh shoot, look at Jasitin. And like I remember on TikTok, like my TikTok blew up, and I had like 60,000 followers on there.
Dude, that's awesome.
Blew up. I was like, oh shoot. I was like, hold on, let me start like a wrestling page. I can translate this to wrestling. I can also record my matches. I was like, all right. I started recording everything, like recording. I start editing. I also watch like Kaden Henschel and like how he formatted his videos and all them people and like other YouTubers. I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. I always enjoyed recording, and I started getting an audience. So I started like loving it more. I just kept recording, and then like it was not until like last year, like my like all my social media pages just like went out the roof, like with the like views and followers. And yeah, that's how I really got into it. I really wanted to like promote like having fun while wrestling. It's not that serious when it comes to wrestling. It's not that serious. We're not always gonna be wrestling for like a whole life. It's always important to have fun.
You know, I love that you said that. You know, I've said it a few times, and I think you'll agree with this. Unless you're the one of the one of the one, you know, Jordan Burroughs, right? Like, unless you're that guy, you're not going to make a living from the sport of wrestling. But with that being said, there's so much you can take from it, right?
So much lessons.
Yeah, dude. Like, you have to be, for one, I've always been in my life, and I try to teach my son this, but he's kind of a knucklehead, you know. He's young, dude. Hopefully he'll grow out of it. But I'm very structured in everything I do. You know, like right when we started chatting, right, I was like, okay, we'll do it at this time. You know, I'll send it at this time, you know. And, dude, you know, I think structure in everything that you do is great for your overall well-being in your life. And, you know, otherwise it's chaos. And what's one thing that teaches you structure more than anything? Wrestling. Okay.
Definitely.
I have to be here at this time. I have to be on weight. So like, I need to plan this out, my weight cut. I need to, you know, there's just so many aspects. And then in a college situation, so much different than high school. Obviously you can attest to that, but in a college situation, you learn time management skills, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I have a 6 a.m. I'm just making this up. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a 6 a.m. workout, right? And then I got class at 9. And then, you know, I have some free time between, you know, 12 and 3 because I got practice at 3. I'm just making up the times or whatever. But, I need to do my laundry. I can do that during that time. I got some homework to catch up. So it kind of, you know, I got to grab lunch before we go do this, you know. So it kind of teaches you like how to structure your day. And growing it, and I think that's an amazing thing. And I think it could go for like all sports, obviously, but like wrestling in particularly, you know, I've never seen an overweight wrestler, right? Like, so like, you know, you look at like that, right? Like for health reasons, right? Like you got guys that even if you don't ever make the varsity lineup, you're staying in really good physical shape. Your health is in good shape. And that there's just so many benefits for it that, man, I'll always advocate for it. And if you don't know, behind me, you can see like characters, right? I don't know if you've seen what we've been building, but we have a collectible trading card game called Mat Clash.
Yeah, I seen that. Yeah, I seen. What was it? Angelo Ferrari. Was it Angelo Ferrari?
Anthony Ferrari.
Anthony Ferrari posted about it. I seen it. I was like, oh shoot.
Dude, yeah, man, I'll tell you that story real quick while we're here. I think you'll find it fascinating. The Bmoney Beastin thing, so you can kind of know where we came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bryson, when he was 5 years old, he's my oldest son. I got two sons. My youngest son's name's Zachary. He's a year younger. My oldest son, he had I bought him an Xbox 360 when he was like 5. And probably the worst thing, he still plays video games, but I think that's a staple. Kids do that.
Yeah.
And back then you had to have, like, I don't play video games that much. I played the new NCAA football. That was pretty cool, right? But
it's fire. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's like it though. You had to have like a gamer tag, right, to like play online or whatever. And he came up with Bmoney Beastin.
That's how I came up with my username. Well, my original username used to be like D1 Zika, but I was like, all right, I went to college, and it was like, you're not D1. I'm like, it's just a username. It was like, but you're not D1. I was like, all right, I gotta change it. So I just put Z and then like 1, and then user. Yeah.
That's all. And you got it off of a gamer tag.
I got off my gamer tag on PlayStation is D1 Jacob. Instead of the it's like, you know how Z1K. I put the instead of the one, I put an I.
That's awesome, dude.
So I just changed it.
I didn't know what that was, and if you look up, in the corner, you can see, the logo. That was our first logo that we ever had done up in the corner. And when he did it, he put a $sign in front of the B and an apostrophe at the end of the Beastin, right? Mm-hmm. And I think he spelled it that way because he was 5 years old and he had no idea, And I was like, I don't know what this is. And this was 2000. This was 10 years ago. I'm like, dude, I don't know what this is, but it just sounds cool. So I wrote it down, and it was in on a Post-it note in my wallet for like ever, dude, right? And then out of nowhere, like he was about we've been doing this for almost 4 years. About 11, he says, dude, we need to do something with that Bmoney Beastin, because he had an Instagram at one time, had like 14,000 followers on it or whatever, and it got taken down because he was underage or whatever, And he used to hashtag everything Bmoney Beastin, and I still wasn't sure like what this is, right? And eventually, we decided we were going to start doing like we have a soft spot, man. I'm far from rich. We're far from rich. We're just an average family. But we wanted to help underprivileged kids if we could, right? And we were going to do like affordable, like Champion type, When I was a kid, Champion wasn't like it is now, where it's like a big brand. It was like one of the lower brands that you could get at like Kmart, right? So I was like, well, that's what I want to do with Bmoney Beastin. Me and Bryson talked about it. Well, in a matter of about 2 weeks, we're like, no, I don't think that's what it is. And then we shifted to producing wrestling shoes, and we got wrestling shoes in 39 states, and they're affordable, right? Like that's the whole goal. Like, the kid that wrestles 8 weeks or whatever, they'll last him, 8 weeks, and it's not breaking the bank, trying to help get more kids into the sport of wrestling. But then I'm like, dude, this is like, it's really hard financially to do that. Like it's a really big upfront cost every time you do that. And I'm like, this is cool, but it's hard to compete with Rudis and Nike and things like that. So it's like, okay, what's next? And then somehow we ended up doing gear packages last year for all the rec teams in our area. And dude, it was so stressful. I'm doing it again this year. Like we actually got some singlets coming tomorrow.
That's great. Yeah, that's
Jasper,
great.
Tennessee. That's their first year ever having a middle school program. And we did their singlets, like really a good deal on them, trying to help them get off the ground. And then we're like, out of nowhere, about 2 years ago, we had partnered with a guy who did the original logos, Quantal Langford, maybe 3 years ago now, at the Langford Studio. If you want to follow him, he does some amazing artwork. We had talked about it, and we partnered to produce the wrestling shoes. And along the way, he told me, he's like, man, you need a mascot. I was like, a mascot? He's like, yeah. And if you look behind me, you see the guy in the green?
Yeah.
That's the first character that was ever built for the Bmoney Beastin brand. And we call him Matt Beast, MB for short. And now we're up to 9 characters, I think. There's only 5 of them in this graphic, but we started building out like this universe. And then we're like, dude, we're building like wrestling Pokemon here. Like
that's actually cool. Wrestling Pokemon, think about it, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, what do we do? How do you build wrestling Pokemon? And then we spent 6 months sitting in the kitchen floor with cut up paper that said takedown, reversal, escape, momentum. Well, the momentum card was the last piece to the puzzle. And we couldn't ever get the gameplay right. And then we had a kid that lives maybe 3 miles from us that wrestles at the same high school Bryson does. You'll actually see him at some point. He's going to be really good. Billy Hamilton. He'll probably be a big-time recruit here in a few years. His dad was a 4-time All-American at Iowa State back in the 80s. And he had said something to me. He said, we were talking about it on the way to practice because we carpool a lot. And I said, dude, I can't figure out how to get from takedown to near fall because it's a 1v1 game, and I can't figure out how to do that. And he says, dude, I play Monopoly Go. And he goes, you need a skip card. I was like, boom, there it is. And then we created the momentum card. And dude, now it plays flawlessly. Wave 1's available now on the website. And dude, we have we're working on the artwork for Wave 2 that we're going to release next year. So like the goal after Wave 2 and anything after that some people like really high scoring matches. Some people like tight defensive matches. Some people like wrestling in different avenues. So we're making it to where you can kind of set up your own deck, right? You have to have
Yeah,
55.
that's cool. That's have different variants of deck.
Yeah, you can you have to play with 55 cards. The rules stay the same. Now, of course, people are going to kind of change it. Like when I was a kid, we changed the rules of Monopoly a lot, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
But in general, yeah, we got the base rules. But then you can say you can pull out the defense card. So if you get a takedown, you have to play a reversal or an escape, right? Like you can kind of shift it to however you want. But that's kind of our story. And then we started the podcast. This is episode 17. We started, me and Bryson, we did like an all-time draft in like episode 4, and we added the NFL, before each pick, and we're just going to keep kind of building and growing, man. And that's kind of the thing. But that's Matt Clash, if you hadn't seen it. But I just thought you'd want to know our story because we heard all. Dude, I really, really hope, man, that one day I'm watching a movie and I see directed by, and I see your name. I'm rooting for you, dude.
That would be great, man. That would be cool to see.
Dude, it's amazing what you're going after. You seem, just talking to you, man, like very mature for a 19-year-old kid. I was having fun following you like on Instagram and things, but now, dude, like we've kind of got to know each other, and bro, I'm rooting for you, man. I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, I'm rooting for y'all guys too. I like what's call it, y'all message to help out the people that are not as fortunate. Because I remember me growing up when it came to wrestling, my parents are not that rich too. Always had like coaches, friends that would also help out, or like during tournaments when I didn't have nothing to eat, or like didn't have wrestling shoes or needed gear. That was providing me. I was always thankful for them, for people like them.
Dude, like in general, that came from like my kids have been fortunate because I've went without at times to make sure they had things, right? So they don't know that, right? But me, I wasn't, and I'll admit this, I wasn't a great wrestler, dude. I've always been like a fan of the sport. I dabbled in it when I was in middle school, a little bit in high school. I wasn't great, but I was a good football player, right? Looking back at it, I wouldn't even been halfway decent at football. Like when I was 10 years old, like I was on a rec team. I was a quarterback and I played free safety, right? And like my team was 5-2, I think, like on the season, and we made it to the championship. And then I think we lost by like 3 or 6 or something. But like we had a pretty good team, and like I was cool at the elementary school because I was the quarterback, right? I remember those days, right? And what's crazy about it, you'll never see this again. I wore number 54 that season at quarterback. So like, how cool is that looking back at it? It's like the Little Giants or something.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to play. And my dad wasn't around a lot until now, like since I've been an adult, like we have a good relationship. And my mom was a single mom. And, she worked one job, it was stuff was tight, kind of like you were saying. And I used to go, and I've never stole anything in my life, but I borrowed the neighbor's bicycle and I put it back every day for 3 or 4 months or however long football lasts. And I would ride my bike with my helmet on one side, my shoulder pads on the other. And, I'd have my pants on already, 1.5 miles both ways. And I remember at night, because it'd be almost dark by the time practice was over. And I remember being scared to death, dude. I'm like 10 years old, right? Like somebody's going to grab me or, whatever. And I remember doing that. And I think that's the basis of what we want to accomplish here, man, is that those are the kids that I really like, my heart goes out to, like those kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I coached a little team in a little low income area, a little football team. And dude, I think we went like 1-8, right? Like we weren't very good. But it didn't even matter to me, right? Like throughout that season, like I took who signed up to play. I went and I bought, like I'd go to like resale stores and stuff. I ended up buying like 17 pair of cleats, kids walking around in busted shoes. And at the end of the year, I took them all to eat, like a big pizza thing. And like, those are the kids that I root for, man. And
yeah.
And dude, like, cause you're a product of your environment and your situation. and people that'll go out of their way to try to help that, any of them, anybody, God bless them for it, and dude, there are people, you can't do it alone. So you have to have those people in your life to kind of help you, come along. In closing though, dude, one question, last question. What are your goals for this season?
These goals for this season?
Yep.
All-American, that's my goal. This season, All-American.
What weight are you going to wrestle at?
65.
Okay.
This year I'm bumping up to 65.
And do you feel, part of this question, you said you're bumping up. Is that like you're walking? How close are you to that weight?
Well, that's like I'm like 5 pounds away from it. Yeah, basically my walking weight.
Okay, so you're like 170.
Yeah, 170. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, dude, you'll feel a lot better. That's
what I'm saying. I've been talking about it. I remember I wrestled with Cole Thomas. He was like a national NIA national champ. I was wrestling him. He was like, yeah, just go 65. You feel great. I'm like, I really didn't cut that much either during college. I was like, oh, okay. He was like, yeah, you say you don't feel that. You don't feel weak. You got the speed too. You feel you got the strength and the speed. So like, yeah, just go to 65. I was like, okay.
Dude, that's becoming a pretty cool theme of the anti-weight cutting.
Yeah, I hate cutting. I'm like, why would I cut? Why would I go to 57? And plus, our team is like pretty good. Like the structure, it'll mess it up if I go to 57. Like there's like already like 3-4 good guys at 57. I'm like, might as well just bump up.
Right? Yeah, dude. Yeah, like we're in that spot right now. Bryson's weighed yesterday at like I want to say he was 123. All right, just walking around like 123. They want him to be 13 by November 9th. And then they want him to go 109 in February for state. And it's like your blood sugar drops, you have no energy. Like there's a difference between, cutting 4 or 5 pounds and cutting 20 pounds, right?
That's crazy.
So I'm kind of getting on the train of the anti-weight cutting because everybody tells me the same thing. But dude, this has been awesome, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, brother. I'm rooting for you. I'm hoping you make that All-American status. I'm also hoping that I see you on a movie credit in the next 10 years. Dude, I tell you, bro, this has been one of the coolest interviews. And throughout the year, man, just shoot us a message, things like that, and say, hey, man, this is how things going. Like, let's stay in touch, my man.
For sure.
All right, brother. Well, this has been fun. Episode, where are we at? 17? I'm losing track. I do this so much. Episode 17 of the Bmoney Beastin podcast is officially in the books. Jasitin, I'm going to call you Justin forever, okay?
Yeah, just call you Justin.
Justin Kubwimana, sophomore at Campbellsville University Wrestling, future All-American and future movie director of The Stars. We are out.